So we're still in April, and instead of just some light snow, it is now heavily snowing. What the heck? What's up, YouTube? Welcome to Fred's Full Throttle. Each week, I'm going to be taking you on my adventures into the world of cars and trying to teach you a thing or two while also having some fun. Alright, so for today's video, I'm going to be covering how you pick an automotive helmet for doing competitive events such as autocross or track days, and how do you decide what kind of helmet you need, what safety ratings are appropriate, and basically kind of answer some of the general questions that a lot of people might have if they're just starting out. That's where I'm at. I'm just starting out, and I realized that I needed to get a helmet. So real quick background, the first thing is that you need to understand why you need a helmet. And you don't need it for normal driving, obviously, but as soon as you start looking to get into performance automotive events, so that could be a track day, that could be a car control clinic, that could be an autocross, something like that, that's why you would need a helmet. A lot of those organizations, for liability reasons, as well as just for general safety, they're gonna want to make sure that all of their participants are safe and are protected. And so that's why you need a helmet. So you may be thinking, well, I ride motorcycles, I've got a helmet sitting in the closet, why can't I use that? And depending on the organization, you may be allowed to use a motorcycle helmet, probably for an introductory, see if you like it or something. But as soon as you get serious, and especially as soon as you start going at higher speeds, a lot of organizations aren't going to accept that. You need to actually get a performance automotive helmet specifically. And so I'm going to cover what that means. So the first thing is that there are some different ratings, and the most important one that you need to know about is a SNELL rating, and that's from the SNELL Foundation. They're a group that certifies the safety of helmets based on some testing and procedures that they have. It's sort of universally recognized. There are some other standards out there, and different organizations may or may not accept them, but by and large in the US, if you're going to be doing any kind of competition events or even just high-speed training or driving, SNELL is what you want to be going for. But there's a specific type of SNELL. Here we got my motorcycle helmet. This is a, what is this? AGV AX8. It's carbon fiber. You can see the weave in the helmet. It's a really good motorcycle helmet. It's light, it's sturdy, it offers really good protection, it's full face, but this has a SNELL M rating. That means it's for motorcycles. And what that tells you is that there's actually a different rating for the cars, and that's called an SA rating. So this is a SNELL M rating, and you need to have a SNELL SA rating in order to qualify for all the different things that you would need. It just so happens I have a SNELL SA helmet. It's actually brand new. I just went through this whole process of figuring out what do I need, what fits my budget, and what safety is appropriate but not, $1,000. And so this is what I bought. All right, so this is the helmet. This is an HJC H10 helmet, and it has the SNELL SA 2020 rating. So there are a few things to consider when picking a helmet. The first is, do you want open face or closed face? So an open face helmet leaves your face exposed, but it protects you on the sides. Think of it almost like a skateboarding helmet or a skiing helmet maybe, but it comes down further. It's obviously made for motorsports, but it doesn't cover your mouth. It doesn't cover your nose or any of that. The alternative is a full face helmet, which is what this is. And you can see that if this was on my face, it would be protecting my chin, some of my neck, definitely like my nose and kind of the front of my face. To decide between the two, there's going to be a few trade-offs. Cost is going to be one. An open face helmet in general is going to be less expensive. There's less material, there's less engineering involved. And overall, an open face helmet isn't going to offer the same level of protection. The alternative is full face, which you're going to spend a little bit more, but it's also going to offer you a lot better protection in a crash. Think of it this way, if you hit something in your car, your face and your body and everything is going to be coming at the wheel, the dashboard, the airbags, any of that stuff. And wouldn't you rather have something in between that's going to take the brunt of that impact if it hits something? That's what a full face helmet is going to offer you. So on the outset though, you may be saying, well, these two helmets look pretty similar. What's the difference between SA versus M? And there are a couple. So the first difference between a motorcycle helmet and a performance automotive helmet is the flammability rating. And so that means that there's a test that the SNELL Foundation does that determines if the helmet is flame resistant. And so it doesn't mean that it wouldn't eventually catch on fire, but what it means is if you get in an accident at a track or at an event and are stuck in the car, you're dealing with your harnesses and there's a fire from all the fuel or something else in the car, it's going to give you some precious time to undo those harnesses and get out of the car, or for somebody to help pull you out of the car without worrying about it melting, bursting into flames, or anything else. So that's pretty important. One of the things you can check is the straps should be yellow and they should be made of Nomex, which is a flame retardant material. That's what all those fire suits are that you see race car drivers wearing. And that means also that there's generally going to be an internal liner that offers that flame rating. So there's a layer of Nomex kind of somewhere in the weave of the helmet, which just sort of bolsters the helmet, makes it a little bit safer, and gives you a little bit of extra time if you need to get out of the car in a hurry and things are on fire. That's going to be something that you definitely want to have. The next big difference between an M helmet and an SA helmet is going to be that the SA helmet has gone through a roll bar and multi-impact test, and it's passed it, versus a motorcycle helmet that hasn't. So the biggest reason for that is a lot of cars have roll cages, especially performance cars or track cars. They may have a metal hoop behind the headrest in the car. There are other hard objects really close to the driver that your head potentially could be bouncing off. You want a helmet that's going to be able to stand up to that. And so they actually test for that with an SA helmet. So the last big difference that I found is that the field of view that's required for a motorcycle rated helmet versus an SA helmet is narrower in an SA helmet. It doesn't have to be quite as wide peripherally, and it doesn't have to be as high vertically. And especially if you're in a car, you've got the roof, you've got the dashboard, you're already looking out through a fairly narrow band. Whereas on a motorcycle helmet, for that visibility and definitely peripheral view, you want to have a wider field of view, which is what motorcycle helmets are rated for. So those are the big three differences that I found kind of between the two with the research that I did. I'm sure there's probably more, but at a high level, that's the biggest thing. It's the multi-impact, it's flame retardant, and it's the field of view. So the next thing that you have to figure out is, how do I pick the right helmet? You go online and you search for SA 2020 helmets. You're going to find there are a lot of options out there. Open face, closed face. There's a whole range of price from as cheap as about $200 all the way up to well over a couple thousand. And as a beginner, especially for myself, I had no idea what to go for. So I actually ended up going to a store, HMS Motorsports, which I bought a shirt while I was there to support them. They're a local business. So they walked me through all of the information I would need to decide on what helmet. And so I decided on a full face. I wanted something that I could not only use for kind of introductory events, but also if the speeds get higher, if I decide to do full-on track days where my rate of speed is going to be a lot higher, I wanted to be able to have something that would also qualify for that and not have any issues with getting rejected at the safety inspections. And so for me, it boiled down to, since I'm just starting out, I don't need the top shelf, most fancy thing. I didn't need the exposed carbon fiber and all of that. I needed something that passes all the same safety regulations, that is very safe, well made by a reputable brand, but I didn't need it to be, the fanciest thing out there. And certainly I didn't buy that, but I got exactly what I think I needed. HJC, I know from the motorcycle background, and they have a good reputation. They make very good helmets, and they all do pass that rating. So there's sort of an advantage there. The next thing that's important is making sure that it fits you correctly. So you can go online and you can look for SA 2020 helmets. You can find a lot of different things. But you'll find that without being able to try it on, at best they tell you, a couple different measurements around your head, and you can sort of hope, or maybe if you have a motorcycle helmet that might tell you, but there are a couple fundamental things, and I found going to a store that sold these was a better idea for me. One big thing that I'll tell you up front, this is an extra large helmet. This is a large. So I went in thinking, I need the XL. I tried on the large and it actually fit perfectly. And so when I tried this on, I was surprised, but the large actually fit perfectly. Basically, for a fit, you want snug with no pressure points anywhere on your head, but you do want it, pressed right up against your cheeks. You want it so it's against your forehead. And if you shake your head back and forth, it's not gonna, lag behind a little bit. You want it to move as one with your head. If it meets all of those needs, it's comfortable, there's no pressure points, and it's not squeezing too hard, but it's definitely, there's no gap, there's no air, you can't get a finger between anywhere in the helmet. That means that it's probably the right fit for you. Plus, going to a store, you can actually talk to somebody who knows exactly what to look for when trying on a helmet, and they'll be able to help you make sure that you get one that fits correctly. Getting a correct fit is just as important as actually picking the type of helmet or even getting a helmet, because if it's loose or it doesn't fit you correctly, it might not protect you as well in a crash. So keep that in mind. So you can see this is fairly tight against my cheeks. It's pressing things in just a little bit, but it doesn't wiggle around on my head. I can turn my head and it moves at the same rate as my head. Same with up and down. If I move it, you can see it's actually pulling, the skin of my eyebrows and forehead just a little bit. That tells you that it's a good fit. It's comfortable. It's not, my nose and mouth aren't rubbing against the front of the helmet, but it's tight enough that it's not coming off. I can shake my head around and it'll stay on. So that's how I knew that this was the right size helmet. One of the other big benefits of helmets is it gives you awesome helmet hair. You get out after a long drive and your hair is going to look crazy, which is really cool. So starting out, I'm going to be doing autocross. It's relatively low speeds, 60, maybe 70, 80 if you're really pushing it at a track and you know what you're doing. But I can easily see that my next step after starting to get more comfortable with autocross is that I'm going to want to be able to do a track day. And I'm going to want to go on a track, I'm going to want to go wide open in the car and really open it up. But those higher speeds also mean that there's more risk involved, there's more importance on the safety. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that I was future-proofing myself. And what I mean by that is I wanted to be ready for a Hans device. Hans Solo. A Hans device stands for head and neck support. It's a device that allows you to tether the helmet. So if you hit something at high speed, what Hans device does is it uses the pressure of the straps to tether the helmet to basically a back plate that goes behind your helmet. And your body is going to stop from all the harnesses and the restraint system, but your head normally isn't. Your head could go forward, and that's a really dangerous type of injury, especially if you're doing it at high speed. You're not going to be able to hold yourself back, and your head becomes a projectile that the only point of connection is your neck. You don't want to put that stress on your neck, so what you need is a Hans device. What that means is, so see how this helmet, on both sides you have these little plugs. If I pull these out, so they're just like a little rubber plug. And I don't know if this is focusing, but basically this is a metal anchor threaded so that you can put basically a screw in here, and you can get what's called a Hans anchor. And you can basically get an anchor that screws into that, and it basically has a little attachment point for two straps which will be tied to the Hans device. And that's how the helmet prevents your head from going forward. So you can see it's a little more important to have that good fit against your cheeks, because in the event that you actually had to leverage and use one of those devices, you're going to be going forward, and those pads against your cheeks and forehead, that's going to be what's decelerating your body at a more gradual rate. And so you want to make sure it fits so that you're not slamming your face into those pads if you have a big gap. And that was the last thing that I wanted to make sure that my helmet had, so that when I move up to a track day, I'm going to be able to use this helmet. It'll pass all the safety stuff, and it'll be safe for me, most importantly. So a couple other random notes that I think are important are every organization is going to be a little bit different about what rating they require. Every 5 years, SNELL comes out with a new rating for SA. So there's an SA 2010, SA 2015, and now currently there's an SA 2020. The intent is that a helmet with that rating technically is good for the next 12 years. As far as a lot of organizations will allow you to use them. So the official recommendation, though, is that after 5 years from the date of manufacture, you're going to want to replace the helmet, even if you haven't had an accident. The other thing is that if you get into an accident with a helmet, motorcycle or car helmet, you want to make sure that you replace it if there's been any kind of impact to the helmet itself. And the reason for that is that the foam on the inside is generally a one-time use thing, that it'll protect you in an accident even from multiple impacts, but at the end of that accident, that foam is not going to rebound to the same size that it was before. It's used up some of its ability to absorb impact, and so it's important, if it's ever had a significant impact from an accident, that you replace it and just buy something new. It's not worth taking the chance. And so one other thing to mention, I told you how there was that whole spectrum of cost. There's $200 entry-level helmets all the way up to multi-$1,000. This helmet was $340. I didn't get it for free from HMS. They gave me all the instruction, but obviously I wanted to support a local business, and so I paid $340 for this helmet. One other thing that I decided to add is a visor for it. So the one that comes on the helmet is clear, and that's good for overcast days, days where the light isn't very bright. But as a lot of people know, when you're driving in the summer or during a bright sunny day, can be a lot of glare, especially at a racetrack. And so I bought a tinted visor. So this visor, if you look through it, it looks smoke from one side, but then on the other side, it's actually a metallic blue, which I thought looked pretty cool. Blue's my favorite color. If you couldn't tell, I have a blue car. I have a blue pickup truck. I like blue. And so I decided I would buy a visor for it. I think this was like another $50, but I think it was money well spent. And so I'm gonna show you guys how to actually install the visor on the helmet. All right, so to replace this helmet, there's basically a big screw on both sides, and there's a little kind of plate here that the screw holds in place, and that's gonna be what you have to undo. So flathead screwdriver. Backing out the screw. You can see that came out. There's Loctite on here, which is good. That means that the screw is not going to back out on its own. There's a lot of vibration in cars. I'm going to do the other side. What we're going to do is keep these separate. I don't know if they're unique to each side. So we'll pop the visor off. So easy as that. Put that down. We'll open up this guy. Check that out. That looks really cool. And you can see, if you flip it around, it's a smoke finish compared to without. But on the outside, it's blue metallic, which is kind of cool. So we're gonna put this on, sort of hold it roughly in place. We're gonna take the first one we pulled off. And you wanna get this little pin into this groove here, as well as line the screws up. All right, so that's finished. You test, the visor goes up and down. All right, so you can see that the visor looks pretty good on the helmet. All right, you can see that the visor looks pretty good on the helmet. It's basically like wearing a pair of sunglasses, so it dims everything down, so on a bright sunny day, that'll actually be nice. Also, a lot of time when you're driving, you may find that you flip it up or you crack it open, with a little bit of a gap, so you get a little bit more airflow. But that's all there is to it. All right. All right, so you can see that the last thing is that you want to make sure that you actually have a gap between the top of your head and the roof of the car. So when you're in your ideal driving position, you're not banging your head off the ceiling. Now, it's a tight fit. I'm 6'4". I'm in the passenger seat, obviously, just due to getting the angle right for the camera. But I've got good room. I can turn my head, and I'm not hitting the ceiling. It's close. It's about the thickness of a finger in between, but I fit really well, and I think this will actually suit me pretty well for track events. All right, so I hope you found that interesting, and I hope that helps somebody who's thinking about doing some of their first track events and needs to buy a helmet. And until next time, Fred out.